afternoon, good evening, good morning from wherever you are. We want to thank you so much for being part of Uganda Crossroads and Campfire TV. We want to thank you for being part of all the programs that we always have here at Campfire TV and Life MTV Online. Tonight, it's a special day. We wanted so much to engage with the audience. And that's why today you don't see the normal resident guests we always have, Hilary, Sal, Joy, Bakanasa, and the other guests we normally bring here on Uganda Crossroads. So we discuss so many things, and we believe that what we discuss has already changed certain things back in Uganda, and of course, all of us in the diaspora. My name is David Lubuurwa, and I always want to thank you so much for being part of our programs again. Now, last week, or this week as we are ending it, there are so many things that have happened in Uganda. We have seen Rebecca Kadaga being rushed to Nakasero Hospital. We have seen President Museveni coming out to support the army and support the economy. We have seen politicians on both opposition and in position, that is the NRM, taking sides on where they want to see the future of Uganda. We've also seen there's so many other developments coming up in the economy regarding to how the trade is going to be exercised in the next few years. All this is very important. And that's why here at Life MTV and Campfire TV, we focus on where we can bring Uganda to the map. And that's what Uganda Crossroads stands for to us. Now today, yesterday or this week, you understand that the Speaker of Parliament of Uganda, Rebecca Kadaga, was rushed to hospital. Now, the most important part of this entire story is how the parliamentary organization tried to issue the press statement. It's very important that, I don't know what you think, you who is watching us right now, but it's very important for, before someone airs out any statement, to let us know what is really exactly going on. Many people have come up to argue that this is just a diversion from what the reality is. They told us about fatigue. And I want to read the press statement that was issued a few hours ago. Not even days, but hours ago. And I'm lucky that I have my producer today allowed me to have my phone around. So I'm going to read the press statement that was issued. And it goes. The Speaker of Parliament, Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, is currently being managed by doctors in Nakasero Hospital in Kampala over fatigue-related illness. She was admitted yesterday soon after her return from a hectic working tour to Morocco and to the United States of America. While abroad, she steadfastly advocated for better policies for women and children in Uganda and across the globe. Due to the hectic work schedule, fatigue, and jet lag, she has had to be admitted in a hospital. Now, that is very important. We also understand that people get fatigue, especially from long distances. We understand that. But the problem is, what we are seeing today is kind of like diverting people from the reality. It's okay for the Parliament of Uganda to issue such a statement. It's okay that the Speaker of Parliament came to United States of America and other countries in Morocco to go and advocate for the policies that regard to children and women in our country. That is very important. She heads one of the strongest organs of our government, the Legislative Council or Assembly for the country. She's very wonderful. She's very honest. Now, the question that comes after all that is going on is it true that why she's being rushed to the hospital is as a result of fatigue? For the first time, we saw President Museveni rushing out to say, hey, my comrade, are you sick? Which is good as head of a state. That is what has to be done. It shows respect for your counterpart. But the question that we have to ask today, is it really true, based on the theories that are coming up now from media personalities, from bloggers, from everywhere, how this system is going on? And that's why today we decided to have a discussion, you and I, to tell us what is really going on. What do you think? Is it true that it is as a result of fatigue? Or the new theories that are coming up, that maybe she was poisoned? That is a theory. We have not yet confirmed it. And that's why when they released this press statement, as Campfire TV, we said no, let's first wait to also air it out. because we wanted to know the truth about it. Was it fatigue in reality? Or is something else, just as always politicians have always done, to divert the community from what exactly is happening? Now, I understand that many questions are coming up from you as well, just as I'm also asking myself here, what exactly is going on in our country where we expect the president to come out and speak the reality. Things are changing. When we expect the parliament to give us the reality, they're not doing the same. They're giving us the political press statement. And you and I agree that politics is always about sometimes lies. We respect and honor that. And we know it's a norm as politicians. Having grown up personally from a political family, I know what it means. I've lived and I've seen politicians come and talk to our family members, and you see somebody really airs out a true lie, but you have to accept it because one, he's a politician or she's a politician, and you have to take that. Now I want to read what you guys have to say about what's going on in Uganda. Do you really believe that it's fatigue that is affecting the Speaker of Parliament of Uganda, and that's why she was rushed to Nakasero Hospital, and as we speak today, she's in Nairobi. The president offered to do whatever he can to make sure that the Speaker gets back on her feet. Now, we must understand that she's one of the strongest women we have in the country. Not only in the country, Uganda, but also in Africa. And that's why we have to respect and get to know more about what's going on in our country when such a very strong woman falls sick and an emergency like that. Now, let me read one question from Kathy Tendo. Ugandan Karamojongs were poisoned by World Health Organization food, who was thrown down to Nakasero. Temu. Oh, well, we understand that. I'm not going to read the last statement, but I want to thank you so much for the comment. Yes, these are the things that we have to ask ourselves. She's a very important woman because she represents Uganda to the international community, the International Interparliamentary Committee of the World, and so many other organizations. She's a face. She's one of the brands of the Republic of Uganda. So seeing her sick and the press statement that was released is not in line with what the reality is, it raises questions. It makes us ask, what exactly is it going on in our country? We have just had recently the NRM caucus that happened in Chankwanzi. There were some discussions that maybe they wanted to introduce new policies or even amend the constitution. Theories would come up like that and ask, is it true that maybe she's not part of the movement and she's trying to, and then that's why something happened? That's a question that has been going on and on. We are not sure of whether it's true or not, but what we do know is she has been rushed to Nairobi. And some bloggers say, well, maybe it's a mafia game. Let me read what Hillary says. Mafias in the government are threatening the Speaker to easily pass Chankwanzi resolution. I don't know how true that is, but maybe it has something to offer to us. Should we say that yes, Speaker's been moving all over? I mean, the office she holds makes her to move everywhere, from one country to another. Should we say she's too old to, fatigue doesn't count with age, but sometimes, well, when you overwork, something like that happens. But this, to many, is a diversion of the reality. Maybe there is something wrong that the government is politically trying to hide. Maybe, just as we've already seen, we've never gotten any report. We have seen generals die and they tell us how reports will be out, and we never see those reports. We don't even see parliamentarians coming out to demand for these reports. So it's a question of why, how, and when did it happen? Now, You see that picture where we see President Museveni holding hands with the Speaker of Parliament, Rebecca Kadaga. That's very important because it shows how great, how wonderful these two individuals are to our economy. And we must know that most of the policies that have been going on in our country, Rebecca Kadaga, the Speaker, the Honorable Speaker, has been part of the members who are fronting the progress of that. Now, what is your view? Is it true that it's fatigue that caused the Speaker of Parliament to be rushed in the hospital? Or there is another theory coming up. Maybe they're playing the political games. What do you think? Maybe right or not? Because that's what the nation, all along, that's what the nation is looking for. They're looking for the reality of what has to be done. The truth about this press statement. I like the fact personally that, well, the Speaker had gone to represent our country, to speak about how we can improve the lives of the children and the lives of the women. It's very important and it's encouraging. And I want to thank you so much. The question would be, why Kadaga? Just as Iman Nabs says. We don't believe, some theories are saying maybe she's gone already, but we cannot say that before we confirm from the government. But I want to thank you so much for being part of this show and sharing and liking and your views. And that's why today I'm here to talk to you, you to talk to me. Tell me what you think about the ongoing situation in Uganda. Now, let's go out of that. Last week was interesting. Of course, I started with a sad story about Speaker Rebecca Kadaga, because it's very important for us to always recognize when such a very strong woman falls sick, it keeps our national agenda at stake. Especially now that people want to see political change. We have seen the rise of new movements, the people power movement versus the traditional NRM movement. Then we have seen politicians coming up to speak so much about the things that are going on. But I want to ask, before I change to go into something else, let me try to go through what's going on Facebook here. Regardless of what she's suffering from, that is Florence Kobusinja. And the conspiracy theories. It's a shame that Ugandans can't get adequate medical care in Uganda. Now, I want to thank you so much for raising that. Now, the questions that have been going on for the last 35 years or 34 years or 32 years that the NRM regime has been in power, we have to ask ourselves. And here, that's why we have to bring in people like Ofono Mpondo to explain to the public, why is it that for all these years, there is no official who is 100% treated in Republic of Uganda? These are the questions that have been rising over and over and over. And this is what they tell the public. This is what us in the media come and tell you the public. Oh, the government is doing a greater job. It has set up a new hospital. It is setting up and all this. And actually that causes us to ask a question. Maybe this could be a new foundation for us to stop, for the public to stop asking, why is the government lending money to a foreign investor to construct a hospital in Lubuurwa? Maybe these are some of the cases that the government is planning to handle. That's the question that we have to, to think about and ask ourselves. Is it maybe a foundation to that? That now we see Speaker being rushed to Nairobi instead of being treated in Uganda, which for the last 35 years NRM government has been in power, has failed to do, to make sure that our officials in Uganda can trust the medical personalities we have in our country. Now the question that we have to ask ourselves, this was simple fatigue, just as what the parliament released in its press statement. Why does fatigue really cause the Speaker of Parliament to be rushed to Nairobi? Does that mean that Uganda doesn't have those specialized medical personalities to take control of all these dignitaries to handle their health issues? Don't they have personal doctors that can do that? don't we have in a country which is as big as it is, and with a government that has been in power for all those years? Can it handle such simple? I mean, fatigue is a very big issue, but the question is, can't we have such medical personalities to handle such issues? That's a question that we have to ask. Now, if it was this layman, you or somebody else who doesn't have such favors, were you going to die? Because in Uganda, we don't have the money for you to use an helicopter or an airplane to fly to Nairobi. That means your chances of surviving are less. That's an opinion from different views, from what others are talking about and the others are thinking. Now, let's look at the reports that were supposed to have aired out. We do remember how Nyakairima died, Mayombo and others. How do these people, how these people die, and how is it that rush to Nairobi more than Uganda? Does it mean that the government of Uganda does not learn from the past, the history? Because when Mayombo had issues, and probably some say with poison, he stayed in Nairobi. Something has happened. Kadaga has fatigue. She's being rushed to Nairobi. That means even the National Referral Hospital Mulago plus what has been just recently launched, the Women's Wing, can't afford to take care of special people like Rebecca Kadaga. Now that poses a question. Is it a new move to liberate our country? Is it a new move that is going to shape or change the economic situation of the economy? Now, I want to hear more from you, people who are watching live on Facebook and other from different countries. And please, let us know where you're watching us from. These questions still sound so much. They die, we never get the reports. But that's what the government does. That's what politics is all about. They will always tell you that, oh, it's very interesting that, hey, we are going to release the report. The Kawesas, the Chirumilas, and the rest. For years. We can say, yes, that's very confidential, not to scare our people. And the government has a right to do that. So it's not done illegally. That's for a fact, 100% a fact. That the government can withhold some confidential information from the public, not to scare our people, or not to scare people for the results that have happened. However, there's some cases like the case of Nyakairima, the case of Mayombo. Now we have Speaker Rebecca Kadaga. They almost have the same scenario. But what's funny is that much as the government is telling us, oh, we have a better health system, we have a better education system, that we teach medical doctors, we teach everyone. The funniest part is when these very great speakers and digging officials in Uganda, when they fall sick, they're not treated in Uganda. They're rushed to India, they're rushed to Nairobi, they're rushed to the United States of America. The question is, why isn't Uganda doing its job to improve the health sector? Billions and billions of money are invested in the health sector every single year. We have seen doctors who have come out to write reports about the grievances they have with the medical system in Uganda, about the Ministry of Health in Uganda, grievances with such institutions, and nobody hears their voice. Nobody listens to them. What do they have to offer? They have to come out and speak out. You are Ugandan. You may be in the diaspora, just as I do, that when I fall sick, I will go to probably at the nearby hospital, Boston Medical, I'll go to New York, I'll go in Washington, or whatever. But my country, Uganda, doesn't have such favors. When you, a common man, falls sick, you have 99% chances. If you don't go to Nakasero, if you don't have the money to go to Nakasero Hospital, you're going to die. And it's not because you don't pay taxes. It's not because you don't care about your country, but maybe because the government hasn't done its job to promote the health system of our country. Now, before I leave this topic of Rebecca Kadaga and the health system of Uganda, let me look at the next comment from Facebook. Florence Kobusinje says again that if politicians are proud of the progress in Uganda over the 33 years, they need to stay in Uganda when they get sick and get all their medical treatments in Uganda. Now, absolutely, people would say yes, that's very important, because if a common man falls sick, you're going to die. But if politicians fall sick, they are taken out of the country to seek for better medical assistance. Now, the question that comes up is, why should the government continue bragging about having a better health system when its officials can't get the better treatment from those so-called hospitals? That's the opinion of everybody here. That's my opinion. That's the opinion of everyone elsewhere. They have to do their job. Thank you so much for being part of Uganda Crossroads, and thank you so much for this special edition. My name again is David Lubuurwa. Now let's change the topic. It's a sad story, really. I mean, leaving even the topic is very complicated, because when you look at how the system is running in our country, you really feel sick. But the government hasn't done its job. It has to do something. Now, let me read the last statement from Hilary Taylor. Kadaga has suffered a history of similar fatigues, and when Dictator 7 rushed to Nakasero Hospital, where Kadaga was first admitted, it raises eyebrows. Now, I don't know how true or wrong this statement is, but what I do know is that President 7 rushed to the hospital yesterday to talk about these issues, to see how his comrade was doing. But let's look at the history of Uganda before I leave this topic. Every year, when there is a controversial issue like this, something happens. Let's look at how Nyakairima died. With the national ID saga, you know the history of the national ID, how it came about, what changes wanted to be introduced, and all of a sudden, Nyakairima was lost. I don't have evidence about how he died, but I do know he's dead. Let's look at Nobu Mayombo, how he also passed on. Days before he died, or years before he died, there's certain things that happened before. All of a sudden, as a matter of fact, he's also gone. The latest should be Kazin. It's not latest, but we should look into that. There was something that happened before. All of a sudden, it's gone. Now, Chilumila, something happened before. Same story. He's gone. What is happening with Rebecca Kadaga is simple. She's very vocal nowadays against the government. You remember when she called out to the minister, Eri Tumine, to explain something about Honorable Bobby Wine, and Eri Tumine comes out and say, hey, you know what? Those are occupational hazards. We also saw other issues that came up during, again, Speaker Rebecca Kadaga calling out Minister of Internal Affairs to also say something about, and the answers that were given were just, moving in and out. So, some questions. Now, what we know, for the first time, the parliament releases a press statement saying she's suffering from fatigue because she had a long flight from United States of America and Morocco. That's true. They have a right to do that. It's their absolute power they have the powers to do that and release such a statement. But the question we need to ask, doesn't that affect Speaker's privacy? Because the statement was issued actually before we even started understanding the issue about how she went to the hospital and all that. Doesn't that affect the privacy of a speaker? Was that a smart move by the parliament? I don't think so, personally. For such an individual like Speaker of Parliament of Uganda, at least they would have spent like 2 to 3 days before they air out such a statement. Because we don't even believe it. That's number one. That's what people don't believe it. That's why you see theories coming out. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's 100% true. But it raises questions. How fast it came about to spread everywhere, it gives questions. Now, let me leave that question. Let me leave that story. Let me look into something else. Yes, the question has been here, where is Hillary and Sarah? Well, today they've not been in position to have us to come and be part of the show, but we expect them to be back very soon. Probably in 1 or 2 weeks from now, they will be back and we'll be talking more about the discussions. So we want to thank you for raising that question. Let me leave that topic. It's sad, but let me leave that. Now this week, President Museveni has been really also active. Remember from Chankwanzi, now we also see him back in doing his presidential duties, the activities he's supposed to be doing, and of course it's very interesting that the president these days is very active on social media. I think it's out of recently when he was praised for raising 1 million followers on Twitter. That was very good, and congratulations, Mr. President, for reaching that number. It's not easy in Uganda to reach 1 million followers on Twitter. It's very tough. But congratulations. I mean, you are the president of the country, so that is very interesting. Now, what's interesting about President Museveni, much as we are having these issues that are going on in Uganda, between Uganda and Rwanda, he's very active with other countries like Congo, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and other countries as a president of a country. It's very, it's very true and it's very interesting. But a couple of hours ago, and he had a discussion with the newly elected Congolese president, the DRC president, Felix Tshisekedi from Congo. And this is what he said from his Facebook post. Last evening I hosted His Excellency Felix Tshisekedi at State House in Entebbe. We discussed trade, regional security, and the other areas of bilateral interest to Uganda and DRC. Well, Mr. President, that was great, and we understand that that creates a bigger market for the Ugandan economy, for investors, and of course traders. However, the question that we have to ask today, as Uganda Crossroads, the issue of Rwanda, which is also one of the biggest markets for Ugandan products, has not been solved. We understand that a few weeks ago, President Museveni and his cabinet stopped cabinet ministers, even the spokesperson of the government, Ofono Pondo, from saying any single word about Rwanda-Uganda relations. Now, that's true. That's very important. That's what the government has to do to protect its interests and the interests of foreign governments. But the government is trying to develop interests with Congo, which is okay because, since we're having issues with Rwanda, we need to create more markets elsewhere. The question that we have to ask, when will the government settle the issue between Rwanda and Uganda? Local investors, local traders have lost millions and millions of money. The Uganda Revenue Authority has lost billions of money in this just last few weeks that the border has been closed. And on top of that, things are going astray. They're checking guns here and there. We know that the Rwandese are our brothers and sisters as Ugandans, and Ugandans know that. And the Rwandese also know that we are their brothers and sisters. But the two leaders have not come out to air out their views practically or even technically to tell us what exactly is going on. They're just fooling. Listen to this one. They're just fooling us around. We really need to know the reality of what has to happen. Yes, it's true, Mr. President. It's very interesting that he was with Felix Tshisekedi, and I guess my producer is having some of the pictures, which he will give us very soon. They had a very wonderful discussion. They talked about trade. We want to promote our trade. We want to promote, as an investor person, I also know what we have to do because we need market for our products. But it's very interesting that Rather than focusing on just one country, now Congo, why don't we also settle the issues that are going on in Rwanda? What is the government doing? If the president, the commander-in-chief of our defense forces, stopped all other officials from speaking out, whereas in Rwanda, we have seen their foreign ministers and other ministers coming out to say, hey, you know what? Uganda, style up the game. We need to improve our economy. We need to improve our sector. So it's very important. It's very interesting. But what we do know is that the president met with his counterpart from Congo. And of course, they discussed something that is very interesting to maybe improve and shape our economy. What do you think about all this that is going on in Uganda? Is it a sign of progress, or it is something that is putting us backwards? Is it changing our economy, or we are losing in all these conflicts? Now, the president has the power to do that. We understand. But he also has to take us back on what exactly is going on. Now, I want to hear from you, people who are watching us live on Facebook and other platforms, what you have to say on the issue of Rwanda-Uganda relations, as well as Rwanda-Congo relations. When I see the president meeting up with Rwanda, with the DRC president, I think it's a good sign of progress. It's increasing our economy, but somewhere, somehow, it's diverting us from the reality. People are going to start losing lives. On that note, in this same week about President Museveni, there is a new trend that is going on. I don't know whether you guys are also following much about what is going on in Uganda with the President Museveni new strategy. I don't know whether it's just to scare Rwanda or it is to scare those who are opposing the NRM government. If you've been observant lately, he's so much involved with the army. We saw on his Facebook page, you know, I follow President Museveni's page, so because I like how he brings out issues. He recently posted that, well, I spent the day at the UPDF 1st Division headquarters in Kakiri, Wakiso District, where I interacted with the commanders, officers, and men. I was checking on their welfare and discussing ideology. Now, he said, soldiers must understand their historical mission. Each army has its mission. For example, the Abamboa and Abalsalam armies of Uganda and Banyol Kingdom believed in defense of feudal system while advancing tribal agenda. Now, I want to, you know, this is very interesting. But there is a way, this is a new trend that after the Chankwa's dialogue that they had as NRM, there is a new trend that the president is engaging the army. From the way the Chankwan's people were addressing, you know, they're putting on green and the army uniforms, some of them. You know, we understand that Uganda is a military country nowadays. It's a military government. But is it a fair game where we need civilians to, you know, appreciate the value of their country, appreciate the value of their economy? Is it what we should be experiencing now? He's so much lately, President Museveni, with the guns. These are facts. If you check on his Facebook page or Twitter account, so everywhere, these are the things that are coming out recently. After him being declared as a sole candidate to run in 2021. Now, as a president, it's okay. He's a commander-in-chief, so he has the powers to do whatever he feels like is right to, you know, move the economy forward. And even the security of the Ugandans. But the security of Ugandans should be for Ugandans, not for just one sector. That is just an opinion from different individuals, from what they think. So I want to know, what do you think about President Museveni's new move when it comes to how he's operating and parading the army into all the things that are going on? Is it just to, you know, scare politicians? Just as, you know, recently he made fun of Lubuurwa, the member of parliament in Uganda, and also he made fun of Bobby Wine. You know what, young man, go back in music. This is not music. This is politics. What do you think? the most important thing that we have to understand is the president working in favor of Ugandans, or he's working in favor of just, other people who are trying to air out a few things. So it's just an opinion. What you think is right, what your view or your opinion will also be okay. So could it be like, just as one of the comedians here say, that could it be a fear tactic that he wants to scare away people? It's very important for us to sit down and negotiate and think about where Uganda is going and how we want to improve our economy. So I want to thank you again for raising all these comments and issues that are coming up. We're glad that we are part of this. We're just discussing, you and I. Tell me what you think. I tell you what I think, what we discovered recently, and we make the show moving. And thank you so much for being part of Life MTV, Campfire TV. We thank you so much for being part of Uganda Crossroads and for loving Uganda and Africa in general. So, the story about President Museveni and the country is always interesting because, you always get something new. You always hear, oh, this is what we're going to do next week. This is what we did. This is the amount of money we need. This is what, that is very interesting. That is great. But the president, lately, he's taking away the reality of what office he holds. He is for the people of Uganda. He is a servant of Ugandans. And he shouldn't scare away new politicians who are coming up on board. He shouldn't say, hey, you know what, go back to music. We understand as a chairman of NRM, that's, it's a very good tactic to say, yeah, that's what I have to do to change, or to divert the other opposition politicians. But it's also interesting that nothing is going on. As a president and as a chairman of NRM, as a chairman of NRM, it's true. You have to say what you want. As a president, we expect him not to divert the reality of how our politics stands. Now, let me read from what we have on Facebook. Kaka Delinja, I'm sorry if I've pronounced the name right, but let me take Kaka. He says, I'm wondering how he was vetted by his party members, yet there's a case still in courts about the age limit. That's a very interesting question. To be honest, I have no answer. But the answer I can provide, maybe I cannot be 100% sure, but what I do know is he was approved by SEC, the Central Executive Committee of the NRM party. Now, recently, last week when they were in Chankwa's caucus, he was again approved and he accepted to keep on leading the system. Well, to be honest, NRM as a party has a right to present President Museveni as their candidate come 2021. Because as any other organization, you always look out for that person who will be strong in a race. Nobody wants a weaker person. Everybody wants somebody who is strong. But if the president believes that he can, continue, yes, age limit is in court. But yes, it's still in court. But it hasn't stopped it from being an active act. So it's still okay because the court hasn't cancelled it yet. So they have a right to present their agenda. Let me read what Patrick says. I think we are deceiving ourselves well in combat by the fountain of honor. Recently, the MPs at their retreat isn't new. Uganda is a military state since 1986. I would agree with him. I can agree with Patrick Odok. Because we have been led by a soldier, President Museveni. We all know, and he's proud of being a military personnel. And I respect men and women in uniform. Those are the people who keep us safe. So, Mr. President, being a military personnel, we have to respect that, and that makes his government to be a military government. It's not a civilian government. It's a lie for us to say, oh, we have a civilian government just because we have members of parliament and all that. The question would be, Do the policies that members of parliament want to pass come from them or from the regime? That's a fact. So recently when they said we are presenting President Museveni as our candidate, that was a great move for NRM government, NRM party. They have a right. But the point is, these leaders, basically the fountain of honor, President Museveni, recently he's using the army so much in almost all of his presentations, almost all of his posts. He's showing us, hey, you know what, guys? Watch out. I have what you don't have, so I can take control of this. Or could it be a tactic that he's showing Rwanda that, hey, don't interfere with our system? I told you when we mobilize, we can defeat. It can be two-way, because he has just released the LDU guys. Now, for the first time, I didn't know that LDUs are supposed to be trained like the UPDF. I didn't know that. I thought they were supposed to be like the police, doing the police work. But recently we had the president coming out straight away to say, hey, you know what? These guys are going to be our reserve. Now that is strange. When I was growing up, when I was very, very young as a little boy, the LDUs were these people within the system, part of us, discussing issues that we respected, things that, protecting us at night, during day sometimes. But lately, they're part of the army. They are now the reserves. But we cannot forget that a couple of weeks ago, they say they don't have money for the LDUs. I don't know whether it was just diverting us from the truth, because after they release that statement, then they come out to say, you know what? President Museveni is letting out a number of LD officials. And he said, these are going to be our reserves. I respect the opinion that, the president has to do that as commander-in-chief, but it's not something that maybe some people will say, it's not something that is really interesting. It is interesting to one end, but it's going to affect others. We must remember that in the last 33 years, this has been a tactic towards elections. You remember the Chibok Squad, how it came about? We're almost approaching the elections. Now we see the LDUs coming up. We are almost approaching the elections. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's 100% right for our security to be 100% perfect, because we don't want to see what happened in Nairobi to happen in Kampala. No, we don't want to see that. So the president has a right to give us all that security. But go back to Chankwanzi. What you see on the screen, how the NRM members of parliament or NRM members were addressed. In normal circumstances, we are, in the public's not allowed to put on, army attires and all that. Yes, somebody's going to say, well, these are not army uniforms. But technically, when you look at the system of Uganda, I don't think if you dress in any way like this, you won't be cautioned. Think about this. Are we going back in the former regimes that we used to see the army controlling everything? Where is police today? Where is police? I mean, everywhere nowadays you see the army, and it's on record. We don't believe in police anymore. It's on record. And even President Museveni doesn't recognize police anymore, just as he does with the army. If you look at the deputy of our forces, the Ghana police force, the deputy is from the army, a former commander of SFC. We would expect police to be police. Just as in the United States, we see FBI as FBI, we see SWAT is SWAT, we see other agencies as other agencies. But in Uganda, every department, they have deployed the army. It's okay. It's improving the tactics. It's improving the sector. But we have to ask these questions that are coming on each day and day. Well, let's leave NRM. You know, the story of NRM never ends. So you want to talk about NRM today, tomorrow, and forever. Let's look at what's happening in opposition. Last week was a very interesting week because in the opposition, we saw Norbert Mao coming up. We are seeing other opposition leaders fighting Norbert Mao. We are seeing many now being called moles. We are seeing many opposition leaders not believing in themselves. What's going on in opposition? Now, I want to be straightforward here. The opposition must wake up. They need to style up. They need to stage up their game. You want to get into office. You want to be the next president of Uganda. You want to be the next government. But you are not organized. Starting from People Power, FDC, DP, UPC, JEMA, and the other political parties. You guys, you are not organized, full stop. You are the face of the opposition of Uganda. But when I saw Norbert Mao coming out, he said, I'm going to stand for presidency come 2021. He's the only person, however, we should be clear, he's the only person who has declared to stand from the opposition. We don't know whether Mugisha Muntu with his new alliance are also going to come up. We don't know whether Dr. Besigye is going to be a flag bearer for FDC yet. Bobby Wine hasn't come out yet 100% to say, you know what, I'm standing. We have seen him coming out to say, you know what, I want to take on President Museveni. You remember what happened in Mitiana during the celebration of his counterpart, the young MP? We have seen that. But that doesn't mean that the opposition is organized. And that's why when I see people attacking NRM that, oh, NRM is disorganized, and I see, oh, FDC or opposition is organized, I'm like, no, come on, guys, that's not true. Opposition, you are very disorganized. And you have to do something about it. It's not too late. You still have a year to go into those elections. Bobby Wine heads People Power movement. Now, what we don't know, whether it's a different political party as seen by other political parties, or it's a movement that brings all political parties in Uganda together. Now, when you listen to Bobby Wine speak about People Power movement, you know, he welcomes NRM members, he welcomes FDC, DP, UPC, and the others. When you listen to other opposition leaders, there is a way they talk about People Power as a separate entity. Just as it is when you hear DP talking against FDC, when you hear FDC talking about against DP. On some occasions, we've had people say, hey, you know what? Norbert Mao is a mole. He works for the NRM regime. He's also in opposition. We have seen Dr. Bedwanika also considered as a mole. He works for opposition. And he says in many occasions that he is part of the People Power movement. We have seen other leaders, Dr. Besigye also speaking about how the other political players are doing in our country. Now, let's be honest and clear here. Now, I want you guys who are live on social media, on Facebook and other platforms, to let me know what you think. Do you really think that the opposition is ready to win come 2021 with the level of disorganization they're expressing lately? You want to see the President General for DP, Norbert Mao, says I want to stand as a president. In the recent past weeks, he's the very person who has been saying we need to unite, we need to back up someone, we need to do this. Was he just playing a tactic that, hey, you know what? I want to stand, but I want you guys to back me up. Maybe he wanted Bobby Wine, or he wanted Dr. Besigye, or he wanted Abed Waneka to back him up. That's why he was calling for unity. But also, it's a fact that he came out recently on one of the local networks in Uganda, and he mentioned something that was very important. I stood, let others stand, and then we sit and negotiate and find out the one we can present. Now that is very interesting. It's great that these leaders are coming out. And personally, I like the fact that Norbert Mao came out and, he said he was frank, that I want to have that seat. Because at least we already know that NRM has already presented Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, I'm not going to say as a president, but as their candidate. We know that now DP, I don't know whether they have already presented him as an organization or as a political party, but I know that he himself, Norbert Mao, came out and said, you know what? I'm standing as a president. We are waiting for Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi to come out frankly and say, you know what? I'm coming as an independent for the same seat. FDC, well, they promised they're coming up very soon, that they will, speak about certain things that are happening in Uganda. That very soon they are coming up to, air out their views and we see what FDC has to offer to. But let's be honest here. Let me put this discussion, you and I. Tell me what you think, I tell you what I think. We have Mugisha Muntu from his new alliance. We have Dr. Besigye from FDC. We have Norbert Mao from DP. We have Robert Kyagulanyi. Now, to be honest, you either feel offended or not, Bobby Wine right now has the largest percentage. Our team is doing a tremendous job on finding out much more evidence, or on the polls, how the polls are running from the diaspora and back in Uganda. And let me be clear here. The diaspora community plays a major role in the politics of Uganda. You either believe it or hate it. That's what it is. We in the diaspora play a major role. However, let's look into the thing. If Bobby Wine stands as a president, if Dr. Besigye stands as a president, if Norbert Mao stands as a president, do you really think the opposition has the capacity to win the next elections when you're versing President Museveni that has the machinery, has the guns, has the government money, has everything? Your level of disorganization as opposition is going to let you down. You've got to pull up your stockings before it's too late. We haven't seen the manifesto of People Power Movement. Well, every time I ask People Power Movement, what are your policies? They ask me, listen to the music, listen to Bobby Wine's songs. And to be honest, I've listened to every single song that is in line with the politics from Bobby Wine, inclusive of other songs. It's very interesting. And I like the fact that we speak about the things on a daily basis, but we also have to look into these major things that are going on in our country. You want the power. But just as Patrick said, let me read his comment. But in reality, oppositions aren't disorganized, just as the opponent that they are all facing is a military, and it doesn't playing party politics, only violence and intimidation. And how do we expect to have a level of playing fields for proper democratic competition? Now, Patrick is very right that maybe the government is playing politics with the opposition, if I'm getting that right. Because the labor, he says opposition is not disorganized. That's true. To some extent, you may say that maybe they're not disorganized. They're trying to also play the interim government, that kind of politics. But however, on my side, I mean, we look at this in different ways, right? Well, look at how the government of the opposition, the people's government, is playing its cards. They said, and it's on record, they said they reached out to Honorable Bobby Wine when they were making the people's government. It's on record everywhere. When Bobby Wine was asked on different radio networks back in Uganda, he said, to be honest, I wasn't reached out regarding the people power, the people's government way of doing things. So the opposition, now this is where I'm talking about the disorganization that is running within the opposition. They lie to the Ugandan people. They lie that, hey, we talked to Bobby Wine. We reached out to him. We discussed all the things before we made this government. Because we already know Honorable Namboze is part of the people's government. We know Alan Sewanyana is part of the people's government. We know the president himself, Dr. Kizza Besigye, is part of the people's government. But the government lied to the Ugandan people that they reached out to now one of the most loved opposition leaders, Honorable Bobby Wine, which they did not do. They have no facts. Because we have the facts that Honorable Bobby Wine came out straight away on the media and said, you know what? They never reached out to me regarding the people's government formation. That is the disorganization I'm talking about. That the opposition has to stage up. The opposition has to speak out. The opposition has to come out in reality and leave the fiction. You were disorganized. And you were disorganizing the voters. The people who are watching the show right now, the people who would wish to vote for any candidate that you present. That's what I'm talking about. It's not that these guys are not bad. No, they are not bad. They're not good 100%. They're not bad. They're there. They're fair. Opposition is doing good to a certain extent, but somehow, somewhere, they're not performing to the level base that we, the voters, expect them to do. They're not presenting the real values that we, the voters, think about. And that's why many questions are rising up every single night. Why are we having a separate opposition, yet you're fighting one person, you have a same agenda, you want to oust Museveni, but you're 100% off track? So now let me ask a question, too. And I know that these leaders will see this question. When are you going to sit down as opposition leaders? You have 1 year to the next elections. When are you going to sit down and come up with that one person that will be supported by majority of Ugandans per se to oust the person you're fighting against? Are you going to be in these Tom and Jerry games every now and then that you want to continue doing like that? This is the information world. That Ugandans know the reality. And there is, make no mistake, as the opposition, I don't think or I don't feel like that you guys in the opposition as leaders would like to see all these interesting Ugandans. People who love your political parties. People who love the movement. To say, you know what? We are tired of these games. Let us support NRM. It won't be good for you. So this is the right time for you to speak out and come out clearly and say, you know what? As DP, FDC in their alliance, we are going to vote this one. We see the DP bloc. We are not even sure right now whether the DP bloc is supporting Norbert Mao. We understand that Norbert Mao declared himself that he's going to stand as a president come 2021. But how sure are we? We haven't seen it anywhere that any political party has confirmed him or his delegates or the members in DP or the DP bloc. Let me go back to the comments that are coming in. Shaggy Uganda says, basically has been playing us with cards. But Bobby said, with them or without, we can still make it. I like this comment. And that's why we are here to discuss these issues today. And following our usual guests, the resident guests, Hilary Taylor and Sarah Joy Bakanas, and the other guests have not been positioned to come and be with us tonight. That's why we said it's going to be a special Saturday, a special day to discuss, you and I. Shaggy says, basically has been playing us with cards. But Bobby said, with them or without, we can still make it. I think I agree with you that, yes, there is a possibility that these leaders can always do it. That the People Power Movement can always do it. The People Power Movement, you have the youth. They will support you. You have the old people who will support you, the rich people who will support you. I always have questions with the People Power Movement regarding how you're going to fundraise for how you're going to make all these projects come true. How are your projects? How are you going to fundraise? These questions are very important. And we need answers from that. And I'm glad that here at Uganda Crossroads, we always have people who support People Power Movement, And they will be here and we will ask them these questions. What is their fundraising strategy? In America, candidates, the Democrats are already fundraising as they are campaigning. Millions and millions of money are flowing in their campaigning managements and whatever. But here in Uganda, we don't know how People Power is going to make the money. How are they going to fundraise? So basically playing the cards just as Shaggy says. Well, one person would say yes. Because on many occasions, Dr. Bestia has already said, oh, I'm not going to stand. And here's the truth. A fact of what he said. He was forced in 2016 to stand as a presidential candidate. He was forced by people to go back and stand as a presidential candidate. Now the question I would pose to such a situation, how sure are we that he really campaigned to his maximum to win the elections? Maybe the NRM won the elections because he was unprepared, as Dr. Bessie just said. He even said that earlier in the early elections, he was again not prepared. But after elections, he came out and said, you know what? The elections were rigged. The same thing that happened last year. The elections were rigged. Why is it that every time this situation happens, he will come out and say, you know what? I wasn't prepared. I was forced to do this. So now that we know Dr. Bessie is not prepared for this, is it time for them to maybe think about another candidate? Or is it he more prepared now? That's the question that you and I can ask ourselves. Now, let me read what Alex Sekabila says. Selfishness and greed. I think I 100% agree with Alex. You guys from the opposition, you're too greedy for power. You're too greedy for the title. You're too greedy because you want to be recognized as president, not for the common man. And that's why you guys are fighting one another instead of thinking about how you can liberate the economy. When we ask these leaders, when you ask the politicians in Uganda, hey, you know what, guys? What do you have to offer to the public? How are you going to improve the healthy sector? Because that's what people in the United States of America talk about. That we are going to reduce the taxes, that we are going to increase, we're going to improve the health sector, that we are going to do this, and this is how we're going to do it. When we ask the politicians in Uganda, this is what they tell us. Don't you see what's happening? The health sector is down. The question we ask you is not that we don't see whether the health sector is down. We are asking, what are you going to offer? So that's why I'm saying that the opposition has to set up the game. Because we think that the opposition should be representing the common man. They should be representing you and I. They should be representing all of us. It's not being done because of what Alex has just said, selfishness and greediness. That these people love most, cherish, and want to put in our society. So that's why I'm saying opposition style up the game. So before I go off tonight, let me read two more comments. And I want to thank you so much for all the comments and people who have been watching from all over the world, from South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, United States, Canada, basically North America, Africa, Middle East. We want to thank you so much for being part of the show. Now, let me read two more comments before I wrap up. Patrick again. What we need is transitional government. Leaders selected from regions of Uganda, even if through elections or other means. And Bobi Wine is the right candidate to read as a ceremonial head of state due to his advantage of being within the age group that are the majority demographically. I 100% agree with Patrick. Because we have to understand, I'm not saying I 100% support Bobi Wine, and I'm not saying I'm 100% that 100% I don't support him. I have my own view, how I see Bobi Wine. He's a very strong candidate for the current time. He's a new face. We don't know what's going to happen, but what we know is a new face. So all the four regions have to be represented. Let me read the last comment from Sasizi Ibrezon. You can still continue sending in your comments and we will still follow up on them probably next week. Best J is NRM support, but we as People Power will right track with the DP. All right, that's how the opposition is now running, and I'm glad that you guys are raising these issues. Because what we want to see is a very well-organized opposition. Just as you see, this is very funny. Before I close, you may think NRM is disorganized, but what I know, at least so far, is that we know they have a candidate. Because all these opposition parties are fighting against NRM. They're fighting against NRM. So you have 99% people who are greedy and selfish, fighting against one person or one regime that is also greedy and selfish because they don't want to let go of power. Right? And both parties have the right to do so. Right? So the most important part is, what do they have to offer as opposition? Dr. SJ, Norbert Mao, Abed Bwanika, Robert Chagulanyi, and the rest, you the top guys in the opposition, step up the game. Sit down together, discuss the key issues that you want to see happen in Uganda. Come out, front one person against President Museveni, and let's see what happens in 2021. But other than that, Hillary, I want to thank you. The dynamics of our politics in Uganda is different from that of yours. It's a challenge that we don't vote ideas, but personality in most cases. Yes, that's what it is. We go by excitement. We go by that. We don't go by what actually these guys can present on the table. So that's why I'm saying that these guys in the opposition, they have to step up, sit down, and come up with a final resolution, just as their opposition, NRM, did, that they are fronting Museveni to be their flag bearer. You and I thank you so much for being part of Uganda Crossroads. I thank you for sharing and watching all our programs. Coming up next is Love, Sex, and Money. See you soon. Your girl Kim Mo will be here live very soon. And see you next weekend. I pray that these guys here at Terra, the resident guests, and the other guests will be coming up to be part of us. My name again is David Lubuurwa. See you then. Thank you.